Regrettably, our challenge is enormous. Today, globally, it's estimated that there are 20 million victims of human trafficking.
The Philippines remains in Tier 2 on the U.S. State Department's latest report on human trafficking in nearly 190 countries. Tier 2 countries are those that do
Human trafficking is a growing problem, and it's taking place right here in the GTA.
Police are now dedicating special teams.
8 people have been found dead in the back of a semi-truck in San Antonio. Dozens of others were pulled alive from the truck.
It seems like every day there is a new story. All around the globe, criminals pad their pockets at the expense of the innocent, and the heartland is not immune.
Kansas is where the fight to end slavery began. And now we have another chapter in that saga of man's horrid treatment of each other. We will fight the scourge of human trafficking like no other state and throw that darkness from our borders.
In one of his last acts as governor, Sam Brownback declares war against human trafficking. Unlike most conflicts, this is one often happening right before our eyes. The signs of this form of human slavery have long been hidden in plain sight.
There's the labor trafficking or sex trafficking of persons from outside the state brought here, which is probably the more almost stereotypical concept I think that many people have in their minds when they think of human trafficking. They think of the smuggling of persons, which is at most a small subset of the broader problem.
Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt says it also includes forced servitude, where children and adults are forced to labor in otherwise legal businesses by traffickers who manipulate them into doing so. Schmidt says the statistics can be hard to come by, but what can be quantified lets him know it's a growing problem in Kansas.
Every year we interview various victim services organizations we work with around the state, same universe every year. Last year, those groups reported serving 475 trafficking victims around the state. There's a group called Polaris, which operates the National Human Trafficking Hotline. It reports that it received about 220 calls from Kansas in the past year in 2017. And of those calls reporting concerning activity, something like 65 resulted in investigations cases being opened. So those are just 2 data points, but they tend to reflect the notion that there are hundreds of cases in Kansas.
The Attorney General says victims are often caught in a cycle of dependence that makes rescuing them from the trafficker a daunting task.
We prosecuted a case a while back, not unusual at all, where the minor victim of sex trafficking actually took the stand and testified for her trafficker, not for the prosecution, because he had created such a complete circumstance of reliance that put the child in that position.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
This is war. There's nothing short of this is a violent act against humanity right on our own soil.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home.
Barry Feaker is on the front lines of this conflict. For more than 30 years, he has led the Topeka Rescue Mission, providing the homeless in Kansas' capital city shelter, clothing, and warm meals. More than 500,000 last year alone. About 4 years ago, human trafficking began to appear on the rescue mission's radar.
So we began to process that in 2014, worked with 4 victims, began to educate the community, educate ourselves. In 2015, that number went from 4 to 45. Not because there were more, we just knew what we were doing better. And that number rose from 45 to 92 in 2016 and 2017, this last year, over 130 referrals for trafficking in the community.
Feaker says the mission started a program called Restore Hope with the goal of not only rescuing trafficking victims, but creating circumstances that shed light on the cause of the crime. Many times, victims cannot see a way out of their situation. Restore Hope builds relationships with them, giving victims the courage to leave their trafficker. Feaker says it's often a dangerous proposition that requires more than bringing them to the shelter.
Maybe bring them into a safe house at some place. We've been creating some of those around the area. We got a long way to go in that area. Or take them somewhere outside of the area of Topeka. Last year, we transported 17 victims all across the country.
For Feaker, the work has just begun.
Security being one. I mean, it sounds kind of strange that they would feel secure with an abuser, but that is all they know. Housing, income, drug intervention treatment, making sure that they have all their basic needs taken care of. And we are way, way behind the curve on that one because we don't have those systems in place. But that doesn't mean we can't.
The rescue mission is one of a few organizations executing battle plans in the fight. The state has raised the profile of the crime to its highest level. Attorney General Schmidt says his office continually provides training for Kansas law enforcement to recognize human trafficking in all its forms.
It's on having people who are in a position to encounter the trafficking in persons trained so they know what it is they're seeing. When they see a child at a truck stop who seems to be in an unusual circumstance, or they see an individual who seems to be in need of help or assistance in what otherwise seems an ordinary, maybe type of business environment or activity.
The Attorney General is also promoting legislation aimed at putting human traffickers out of business in Kansas. But he says average Kansans can join the fight as well by learning more about it and making contact with local organizations who've answered the call to arms. Feaker says the enemy's foothold in Kansas can and must be removed.
And we have to look at it as such, as this: we must declare war against human trafficking, modern day slavery, and not approach it with anything less than that.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home.
Reporting for Great Plains Christian Radio, I'm Delvin Kinser.